Real-time communication is everywhere, and consumers have become conditioned to expect it within the web apps that they use and the mobile apps that they use. And so it's only natural that I wanted to go and learn more about this technology and how I can implement it. So one of the first places that I'm going to look to, of course, is Pusher, because they've been doing it probably the longest amount of time, and they work with some of the biggest names around. So they're pushing stuff out for GitHub, MailChimp, NBC News, New York Times, and a lot of impressive stuff has been built on top of Pusher's infrastructure here, and I really like the way that they focus on allowing you as a developer to build apps and not faff around with the infrastructure that powers those apps. So we're going to look at using that within Laravel today because that's my favorite framework. Unfortunately, Laravel 5.3 comes with some goodies out of the box which will allow us to basically just get up and running pretty easily. Now, Pusher is free to get signed up and started with, and I recommend you do that. And let's get started. Okay, so for the purposes of the example that we're going to use for this entire lesson, I didn't want to just go down the route of doing a to-do list like everyone else does. So I've spun up something really, really quick and simple, and it's kind of like a social networks type thing. So you get a post and you get comments, and cats apparently. Hello, kitty. Some of them posts are public and some of them are private, and we'll get into why in a little bit. So as you can see here, we've got a public post, which is a picture of me that I don't mind showing the world, and a private post, which is a picture I'd rather kind of not show the world because I was 16 at the time wearing a Pure Ownage t-shirt thinking that I look cool. Oh, well, I don't know what I was doing. So let's head into public post here. And what we've got here is a really simple HTML file. I've used Bootstrap, but I've also used Vue.js, Vue 2 with Vueify and Vue resource, which comes quite handily built into Laravel. So basically out of the box, you've got all of this functionality. Webpack is built in. Laravel's Elixir allows you to run gulp, and bang, it compiles it and squishes it all down to a JS file that we can spit out to the browser along with any CSS and Sass related stuff. So let's just do a quick demo here. So I'll just do hello world. Do submit. Great, so what that's doing is actually sending a HTTP post across to Laravel, and Laravel is going away and plopping that in the database and returning the response to Vue, which we then put in the page. Let's take a quick look at how that's done now, because it kind of forms the foundation of what we're going to learn next. So inside of our resources assets JS components, I've got this comments.vue file. Very, very, very simple stuff. So inside a template, we've got this this little section here, and you can see I'm looping through all of the comments. I'm spitting out the username, what the comment is, and then further down below, I've got a text area with a submit button. Now, I have made videos before on utilizing Vue components within your application, and this is a Vue component as such. Although my video was based at Vue 1, we're now using Vue 2, but the concept is kind of similar, and it's kind of, I'm telling you this because if you look at things like this post URL, what I'm binding a variable to, obviously we need to know where to post these comments to, and we don't want to have to put blade templates in these Vue files, A, because we couldn't do it anyway, and B, because it's probably not good practice, and there's better ways that we can do that. So we've got this post URL and we've got this props method here. And this props is basically anything that we instantiate this component with. We can also, or anytime we instantiate the component, we can pass along these variables. So we can pass along the post URL, the comments URL, and post ID. And for the purposes of this, the comments URL is the URL that we will use to actually go and get the comments from Laravel. Post URL is what we use to push the comment that we just created to Laravel. Post ID is self-explanatory, and we pass that in. If we look at our show method here, which is what is actually showing our individual page, we instantiate that component here with those values, so we can actually then grab them straight out of Blade. Excellent. We don't need to worry about putting this in the JavaScript here. So one other caveat when you're doing things with Vue and you're requiring stuff to be kind of sent to Laravel, it's going to be really, really finicky about CSRF tokens. So we have to make sure that they're covered as well. So let's look in our layout file here, and you can do this one of two ways. You can see I've already got it highlighted there. Within the script section, you can put window.laravel and you can pass an object, CSRF token being one of the keys, and Laravel's little helper method there, CSRF token, being in the string. Alternatively, you can tidy it away nicely at the top here as a meta tag and shove it in the content there. And if you look in bootstrap.js, you can see that as long as you've got all of Laravel's stuff installed properly, it's going to be able to pull that out using this method here, because it will instantiate it and it'll go and look for it and find it and all that. So further down here, you can see what actually I've done here is uncomment that out, because that isn't commented in by default. And that's because Laravel Echo itself isn't actually installed by default. So what I'm going to be doing is taking this front end that we see here, and anytime that we submit a query, as it says, or a comment, what I want it to do, I want Laravel to actually broadcast that off to Pusher, and I want the JS to be sitting separately, listening at Pusher and saying, hey, have you got anything new for me? And it goes, yep, got a new comment for you, pulls it down and puts it on the page. So it'd be really nice to get this kind of working so that I can type a comment in on one window and you see that appear on a second window automatically without any refreshing. So it should be quite simple to do that. But first off, we do need to install some bits. So let's look at the first bits that we need to install. So if we've got npm, I should have it here. This doesn't come out of the box with Laravel, but it's very, very easy to do. So just running this command will pull down Laravel's Echo libraries, and it'll also pull down the Pusher JavaScript stuff that Webpack will eventually use to get all this stuff working. So with that done and dusted, we can move on to the next thing, and that is composer require pusher-php-server. This just allows PHP to connect to Pusher and push up the events that you want. So we'll install that as well, and that's done. Great, so let's take a look at some of our Laravel specific configuration items now. So we'll head into our config folder, and under broadcasting, I've set my default to be Pusher. Without any environmental variable, I'm not going anywhere else away from Pusher for this sort of stuff, so having this as an env variable is just asking for trouble. Inside of Pusher here, I've just got my key, secret, and app ID, and these are available in the Pusher interface. So I advise that you log in, have a look at app keys. It's made very, very simple for you on there. In fact, their UI is really, really nice to use. Some of the UIs for third-party services are really hard to navigate through and kind of figure out what's going on where, but it's quite nice and simple to use, so do that. Now, one other thing to bear in mind is this options parameter, and to make sure that whatever you put in the options parameter is also reflected in the JS side of things, because you don't want to say that the JS is expecting encrypted stuff, but your server's not sending it encrypted, or that your cluster is US based and you're actually based in the EU. So you can see I've kind of utilized all of the options available to me here, really. I'm an EU based cluster, I want things encrypted, and if I head back over to this bootstrap.js, you can see that I've done the same thing there. I've put my key in, broadcaster is Pusher, definitely encrypted, and the cluster is EU. So in terms of the JavaScript side of things, we should be pretty much up and running, ready to go soon. The PHP side needs a little bit more though, because what we need to do now is tie into the point where you create a new comment. We want to send that comment, serialize it all the way off to Pusher so that Pusher can send it to JavaScript. Well, the way that we're going to test this first is that we want to just make sure that Pusher is actually receiving these messages from PHP. And the best way to do that is, let's have a look. They've got this this nice debug console, and it shows your events, and it removes everything in there when you refresh the page. So it's really nice for just checking things out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this running, and we're going to start off by creating a new event. So we'll do PHP artisan make event, and I'm going to call it new comment. What's awesome about the fact that this is all kind of built in is I don't really need to change anything. The only thing I want to do is implement, we'll check out should broadcast, because that tells Laravel that we actually want to make sure that this gets sent to Pusher rather than it kind of being just an internal event. And the next thing that we want to do is we want to pass, we want to actually get the instance of the comment that has just been created. So I'm going to use PHP Storm's super quick stuff for instantiating that. The difference is that instead of using PHP Storm's private thing, though, I'm going to use public. And the reason is that what Laravel does when it serializes these events is it actually looks for all the public properties and it makes them available in the serialized event, which is obviously going to be sent to Pusher. So we want to make sure that that is available as a public variable. Broadcast on. Okay. So within private channel, this is what we actually want the channel name to be called. And I'm going to call it comments. Dot, and then what I want to get here is the post ID, because obviously this channel is specific to the post ID, and to do that I can just do this comment. No, I can't do that. Post ID. Actually, I named this database tables a little bit weird, so that's actually called post ID from memory. What is going on with me today? Right, so that's ready to go. Now, the only thing that we've got to do now is when a comment is actually posted is to fire off this event. Now, one caveat here is that you need to ensure that you've got queue stuff up and running. So whether you're using Beanstalk or you're using the built-in Laravel queues, which I recommend if you're not doing any sort of crazy scaling stuff, that you can get quite a long way using Laravel's built-in queues. So I recommend doing that. And there's a command that we can run to do that actually. It's PHP artisan, not queue listen, where is it, queue table. What that will do is actually generate a migration for you with all of the stuff that you need, and then you can just run PHP artisan migrate, and it will just migrate that. And then you, in your queue config, we can you can see I've got this set to sync, but no, it's not set to sync actually in my environmental variable. It's set to database, and it will just work out the box, which is really nice. Let's head into web.php. So this is where everything's going on. Now, it's a bit messy. I wouldn't ordinarily do things like this. I'd have them in nice controllers. Everything would be nicely kind of dependency injected, but this is just an example tutorial. So hopefully it makes things a little bit more transparent as to what's going on. The only place that we're really interested in looking, to be honest, is here. And this is when a comment is created. So we're going to use Laravel's helper called event. And we're gonna create a new comment, and we're gonna pass in this comment that we've got here. Now, what's gonna happen here is as soon as a comment's created, it's gonna fire off the event handler for that comment, passing in the new comment. It's gonna see that as a public variable. It's gonna serialize it, send it off to Pusher. So upon going back to this this page here, refreshing, we should see. So we've got nothing in our debug log. Oh, we've got a connection there. But if I do testing, submit, and I know why, it's because we actually haven't got our queue running. So I can just do PHP artisan queue listen. And so now you can see that a new comment was sent. And if we ping this open, we can see everything about it. That's so awesome. And this is exactly what was being returned as well to our Vue instance. So it's kind of really interchangeable, which is really nice. The only thing we've got to do now is just hook up a Vue component to be able to listen to Pusher and to be able to do stuff as and when it receives that information back. So let's go into here. Now, mounted, this is where the magic happens. So as soon as a component is created within the application, or this comment component is created, this mounted method is run. And you can see what I'm doing here is actually going and getting all the existing comments, and that will cause them to be put in the comments data object and then looped through and spat out here. But I want to do the next thing, which is I actually want to get Vue to listen into Pusher so that it can get any updates and push them onto the end of the stack. So let's do that now. So I pasted that from the Laravel documentation because I can't remember everything. So this listen will become new comment. And this is going to be comment dot. And actually, I'll tell you what, let me head back to here so I can explain this. So new comment, as you can see there, is going to be the name of the event class here. Broadcast on, this is the channel that we want to kind of listen in on. So that's going to be comments and then the post ID. So let's head back to here. And to get the post ID, we actually already have that in the data array, or based in the property here. So we can just do post_ID. When we get that, it's going to spit that out to the console for us to listen, well, to show us what's going on there. That should be enough for us to basically run gulp on. I'll create a new one so our queue can continue to run. So that's away and done. Now I should see this in the console. It's not actually going to show anything on the page yet, but we should see it in the console. And the reason that we haven't is because this, if you remember rightly, this is actually a private channel, and that means that I actually need to change this to private. Just simply doing that should make this work. But actually, this is actually quite important. There's a few other things that we need to do now at this point. Let's go into our app.php file, because by default, the broadcasting stuff is actually commented out. And this broadcast service provider is actually quite important, especially when it comes to private channels. And I'll explain why now. So let's head into providers, broadcast service provider. Now, on the boot method, this is actually providing some routes that Vue and Laravel Echo can tie into to determine whether or not you're authorized to tune into this channel. And if you're authorized, then it's going to let you do it, and it's going to provide a key for you to go to Pusher with, and so on and so forth. Now, we want to do comments.star here. And this broadcast channel method here that we're using is allowing us to determine the authorization for this channel. And the first argument is always going to be the user that's logged in. So if there is a user that's logged in, this might be false. And the second is whatever's in this star. If you have multiple stars, you could have another variable, for example, and that would be in there. But our one is actually post ID that we want. But to be honest, we're just going to return true because we don't care whether the user can or can't do stuff. We're always going to let them do stuff. So let's head back and we'll just fire off another one of these. Awesome v2, and it helps if I refresh my page. Awesome v3. We'll get there, third time lucky. No, this is the problem with gulp. Sometimes I forget to, if you run gulp and gulp watch, it's going to do an initial build for you, and then it will listen to any changes and make sure that they're kept up to date. Because I always do this. I update the JS and I forget that we're not working in PHP and that it won't automatically update for me. So you can see now that's done the job. The queue worker's gone and figured out what it's got to do. So it will serialize it, send it to Pusher. Our JavaScript was successfully listened to Pusher and got a WebSocket pushed back, and we've got this object. Awesome v4. So now the only thing that we've really got to do is head back to here, because at the point of receiving this, let's have a look at the exact syntax of this again. Yep, so we've got an object and then comment in it. So I can do comment, and that should be right. So at the point of receiving this, I actually want to push this up. So I can do self.comments.push. Should be good to go. Now you can see Webpack has automatically figured that out now, so I'm not made a fool of again. Awesome v5. Great, awesome. Now, can you see the problem? Obviously, Vue.js has been built that when we submit a comment, that it will automatically push that onto the end of the comment stack. Awesome, that's exactly what we want. But the problem now comes in it's also listening for events, and it's got an event back for the event that it just fired, and it's adding that on. So now it looks like we've got duplicates, but if we refresh the page, we've only got one v5 there. Now, fortunately, there is a really, really easy way to get around this, and it's already been thought of. It's genius. Let's take a look. So back in our web.php, this event. Now, we don't want to fire off event. We want to actually fire off broadcast, and we can simply do to others. This is going to make sure that we're not going to fire off this event to the existing connection that this application's got, and that other people are going to get that event, no one else. Now I'm going to head into SQL actually and clear down them comments. Excellent. So we have a clean slate here to get working on. So we will do comment version 1. You can see that I only get that one comment. I don't get any other duplications there, which is nice. So I'm going to create a new private window. And I'm going to do pusher.dev. And I'm actually going to do login because the application needs, the application needs to be able to log in to be able to understand what users post stuff and all of that sort of malarkey. So I'm now logged in as my wife. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just put, hello there wife. We should see whatever I do appear on this side of the screen now. Boom, the queue listener will pick that up, it will send it away to Pusher, this pulls it down and you can see, hello there wife. So really that's awesome. We can get some real-time rocks. We can send that back and see it appear here. Pusher is awesome. So this stuff is actually really quite powerful, and you can see how implementing in your application is actually quite easy. I mean, there was a few hurdles to get through initially once, but to be honest, that is mainly getting the broadcasting stuff set up, the configuration and whatnot. But you can see I've had to do very little in terms of actually going into Pusher and setting things up. It's really nice back-end infrastructure that I can rely on to just push and serialize events to and listen into. As well, it's kind of feature-packed, so all the stuff that's built into Laravel Echo, will work with Pusher, which is really cool, because some of those other providers don't necessarily support certain methods yet. As well, one of the other things that I'm really excited about with Pusher is the mobile push notifications. And I know it's not specific to Laravel, but it'll be really nice to be able to have kind of notifications, real-time notifications kept all under one hood for the clients that I work with, because not only do they work with and want web apps, they also kind of want mobile apps as well. And so having the two in one place is going to be really, really cool as well. But I look forward to kind of learning more and more about Pusher the more I use it, and I recommend that you think about ways that you can implement real-time communication in your web applications, because for a user's perspective, it's really, really nice to see all of this sort of stuff just kind of happening on the fly. And it feels like it's thought out, if you know what I mean. You're not having to refresh the page and think, oh, it's because they might have done that and I've not refreshed the page since. To just see it happen automatically is really a nice feeling. So I'm going to close this down now. I'm going to go back into Pusher. I'm going to go to my application keys, and I'm going to create a new key and secret that you're not allowed to see. I think you just did see that. There we go, we won't see that. So I hope that really helps you get to understand how you can start working with Pusher real-time notifications in your web applications. And if you have any questions about it, please do not hesitate to contact me. I'm at the Skater Dev on Twitter, and I'm more than happy to help.